They say motherhood is a journey, but let's be honest, sometimes it feels more like a roller coaster with no seatbelt. I bet you're like me, wondering why babies, or teens in my case, don't come with instruction manuals. Welcome to This Incredible Mom Life, the podcast that celebrates the beautiful chaos, quiet wins, messy moments, and everyday miracles of being a mom. I'm your host, Dummy, wellness coach, mom of 3 boys, and a passionate believer that you don't have to live at the mercy of PMS, burnout, or exhaustion. Join me every week as we hear the craziest and most unbelievable mom stories. I'll be sharing the huge accomplishments and triumphs of both our moms and their kids. We'll giggle, cheer on the kids, and discuss obstacles and lessons learned along the way. If you are struggling to be the best mom you can be, how open-minded are you to booking a free call with me? You don't have to live at the mercy of your cycle, and you definitely don't have to do it alone. Give yourself permission to let me be part of your support system. I believe that you weren't meant to just survive motherhood. You were meant to thrive in it.
Super moms aren't perfect. They're powerful, and today's guest embodies that. Glady Ferguson is the on-screen host of the new TV special, Dianetics, The Adventure of You. After her first child was born, Glady faced intense postpartum blues and overwhelming self-doubt about her ability to care for her baby. The fear of failing as a mother felt paralyzing, especially with her husband's uncertain NFL career and all the challenges that came with moving and motherhood. Through all of this, it was Dianetics, the modern science of mental health, that gave her a way to handle these emotions, regain confidence, and not only recover, but build a happy, connected life with her family.
Yeah.
Thank you, Glady, for joining me today.
Thanks for that awesome introduction. Yeah, it was quite a journey, all of that.
I'm sure it was, and I think we're going to hear a little bit about it today.
Yes.
So let's start with you sharing who you are a mom to.
Okay, so I have 3 kids. I have 2 teenagers, and an 8-year-old, and they are absolutely stellar individuals. Their names are Isaiah, Anjali, and Kenzo.
Nice. And tell me a story about the 3.
Yeah, so essentially they're all in sports, and I homeschool my kids. And so we are navigating that journey, which is somewhat new. We've been doing it for a few years now, but they were in formal school and now are being homeschooled. So that was a whole transition. But we're making our way through that. And yeah, they're artists. They're incredible. They're super intelligent, amazing kiddos.
Nice. Share something wild and crazy that they did.
It's wild and crazy.
I'm sure we could write a book on these, right?
Yeah. Wild and crazy in terms of like sports or
anything. Just a particular event. If you remember something in particular, a funny event.
That's a good question.
A challenging morning to get everyone out the door, whatever. We like to get to know all the craziness that happens in your house.
Yeah. So, well, the real talk is for me as a mom and a homeschool mom, trying to navigate that life and also sports and all of the other extracurricular activities that they're involved in. Um, I've been, having a challenging time trying to get the schedule together and figuring out how to get my kids ingrained in like social activities. So that was a whole transition. The kids are they're pretty funny. They're pretty interested in life and interested in figuring out how to isolate what their purpose is and stuff like that. So that's been really a win for me as a homeschool mom, is like that journey of discovering, before they were in school, and it was a small private school in California. And I just assumed that the teachers it was their job to teach the kids, right? And so I was there helping them with homework, but I didn't fully appreciate how much work goes into educating 3 different individuals at 3 different levels of learning. So the madness is that for me. That's the madness, is like navigating that, figuring out how to teach, a little munchkin how to read, which is a whole new thing for me, but it's going really well.
Yes.
So yeah, that's our craziness.
Awesome. Homeschooling. And yeah, I can't even imagine like trying to teach my teenager stuff.
It's really amazing the things that you can all of a sudden recall. And then it's also really amazing the things that you don't recall as you're
Yeah,
teaching them. So
yeah.
it's been kind of fun learning, relearning, and remembering all the things that I learned in school. I'm like, oh, that's what that was about, you know?
Yeah, nice.
That's
I've
really
had
cool.
quite a few homeschooling moms on my show, so
Oh, really cool.
yeah, it's I guess it's gaining popularity.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah,
we
it's
moved mid-year, so that's kind of why we
nice.
started doing homeschooling. Yeah.
Pretty cool. All right, well, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my background, I went to school actually to be a specialized doctor in premature babies. That was my goal when I went to college. I was pre-med major, super obsessed with science and everything about the body and explaining how the body works. Loved that. And then as a side job, I was working in a jewelry store, which turned into an opportunity for me to host on a network, a jewelry network called the Gem Shopping Network. So I was a host there for several years, and we sold luxury jewelry and gemstones, and that was a really fun adventure. But that's kind of the direction my life went into, which is hosting on TV. And at some point along the journey, I met my husband, and he played for the Denver Broncos at the time. And so we started our union together and got engaged about a year after we met. And so that was kind of where my life was going. I moved to Denver to be with him, and I was commuting to Atlanta to work at Gem Shopping Network every couple of weeks. And so there was a point though where I got super sick all of a sudden. And my husband said to me, and he's like I guess at this point it was like his third to last year in the NFL. And he said to me, "Do you think you're pregnant?" And I was like, "Oh my God." And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. So I had been thrusted into this new reality, which I had romanticized and fantasized about having being a mom. And, you kind of take this whimsical approach to what that's going to be like to grow a baby and to deliver a baby. And that's the space I was in. But I got really, really sick and it was really, really tough. And my husband got injured at the same time. And so his career was super uncertain at that point. And so, yeah, that was really, really a tough point in my life of dealing with pregnancy. And then I had a really hard labor. And then the navigating, which you alluded to, motherhood, like being a mom to a newborn, which is really, really challenging as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about some of the hard days. What were you feeling in those hard days when you had one kid or three kids or whatever? Like, what were some of the struggles you had?
Yeah. Like I said, thought that motherhood was going to be this sort of fantastic, glorious, incredible experience because you're transitioning to the stage where you are now like growing a human, right? And then you deliver a baby and then the beauty begins. And all of that is true, right? That all happens. But I was really sideswiped and shocked at how sick I was. I immediately had to stop working. I couldn't commute and I couldn't
Mhm.
keep food down. I don't know if you ever experienced pregnancy sickness before, but it was brutal. And I just didn't know. I had this weird thought that I wasn't going to like make it. And I couldn't explain it. It started sort of peaking when I was pregnant and I got a medication for the nausea, the extreme nausea. And I said, if I feel like I'm gonna die, I will take this medication because I was really against like taking medication while I was growing a baby and I just didn't know the interactions and all that. And so I didn't wind up taking it, but it was just this weird gnawing thought that persisted through my pregnancy. And then I got to the point of delivering and medically I was boring. Like there was no reason for me to worry about passing away in childbirth or anything like that. So I went to the hospital, labor started. I'm like, okay, I'm going to meet this cool being. And like, it's really exciting, except it's all new, right? And so I had my birth team, I had my birth plan, I had everything laid out that I had decided to do as you do when you're a new, right, going into parenthood, a new mom. And I did the birth classes. I got myself really prepared, right? And then I was in labor and I was in labor and I was in labor and I was in labor. And the nurse came in at one point and she said to me, "We're not sure if you're in labor." And
Oh.
and I thought, "What are you talking about?" Clearly I'm in labor, right? And I had this quiet thought that I wasn't sharing with anyone. I had a doula that was assisting me in my labor, and she at some point took me out because I was getting really upset about the idea that this lady was saying I wasn't in labor. We took a walk quietly by ourselves, and she said, "Is anything going on with you?" And I like had this thought was like just sitting there. And I said, "Well, I'm just not sure if I'm going to survive labor." And as soon as I said that, like I had an instant relief just being able to share that with somebody, but it didn't go away, you know?
Mm.
So they sent me home and I progressed, labor happens. Labor happens, labor happens, whether you wanted to or not, labor happens. So I was at home, we labored at home and I got through that part and then I went to the hospital and delivered Isaiah. But I didn't understand that. I couldn't source it. I couldn't figure out why I had this idea. There was no medical issue going on with me at the time, but I just had this gnawing idea, so much so that it slowed my labor down and I was sent home because I fully believe that that's the reason why my labor stalled.
Yep.
And so I had a new baby, 11 hours, 11 hours old. I come home, I'm trying to nurse and figure all of that out. And then my milk supply was not working. Like I just didn't, I was stressed, obviously, right? And so my milk supply was not as high as it should be, and my son was losing weight and not gaining weight, which as a with a new mom is a big deal. And so they were like, "Well, you need to put him on formula." And I was like, "No!" Like I had built up this idea of nursing my kids, and like, I just wanted to do it that way. And so we figured it out, but I couldn't escape this cloud of like, I'm not going to make it. And then when I had him, it was I'm not sure if I can keep him. I can't even keep my own kid alive through nursing that. Like this
I had
weird,
the same thing.
really,
Yeah.
it was so frustrating. And I couldn't
Yeah.
see outside of it. I couldn't see beyond it. And my husband, my poor husband would just sit there and bring me food and he'd support me
Yeah.
the best he could. But I was in this mental torture, really,
Yeah.
It's a really big loss, the idea that you can't keep your kid alive. And he
Yeah.
was,
I went through that too.
oh,
Um, I was only like, I don't know, he was nursing like every hour and a half. And I was so
yeah,
adamant about breastfeeding. I was like, no, no formula, no formula. Same like you.
yeah, yeah,
And then eventually when I started pumping, it was like an ounce and a half. I was like,
same.
that's all I can produce.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so I know a lot of moms go through that kind of survival mode, a
yeah,
lot of questions, a lot of fears.
right.
How did you come out of that?
Yeah, so I reached for all the resources I had access to at that time, which was going to see a lactation consultant, talking to La Leche League, which is a volunteer organization that supports moms who are breastfeeding, which was immeasurable in terms of like functionally getting my milk supply up and figuring that out. I wound up getting donated milk from the hospital. I purchased it and they sterilize and do all the things that they do. And so I was able to, with tubes and contraptions attached, I was able to feed my kid just breast milk. So I was able to get that goal accomplished. But at some point after I navigated my way through that or the early days of having a newborn, I discovered Dianetics. Dianetics is a technology, and there's a book called Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. It was written by Hubbard. And it's a technology that really, he explains how the mind works. He explains that there's an analytical aspect of the mind, which is what we use every day to figure out problems, to estimate how much effort it takes to, open a door or lift weights or whatever it is that you're doing. That's the part of the mind that we all know. But you may have heard about it, and you certainly may be aware of this subconscious mind. We've all heard whisperings like, what is the subconscious mind? Oh, it's the part of the mind that's recording at all times, right? So in Dianetics, Hubbard codifies this and really explains this and researches this part of the mind. He calls it the reactive mind. So
Mhm.
this is the area of the mind where all pain, loss, and trauma is stored. And why that is so significant is once you realize that this is the source of your unwanted emotions, irrational behaviors, irrational thoughts, anxieties, fears, anything that you have in your life that you're not able to control, that is aberrated, comes from this part of the mind.
Yep.
And just reading the book, I'll show you the book. This is the book. Just reading the book was incredible because I could all of a sudden source and go,
Yeah.
that's why I had that thought that was
Yeah.
just lingering and I couldn't explain it, right? And so that was very relieving just to discover the technology and the data about how my mind works, how our minds work, where does this aberration and odd things that come up if you wake up in the middle, of the night, like my kid sometimes, my little kid, he'll wake up with nightmares.
Yep.
And I'm like, what is going on? You know? And so it's really nice to be able to categorize and go, that's what that's from.
Yeah.
But beyond knowing that, there's actually a simple stepwise method that you and a friend or a loved one can partake in on how to handle and address these painful emotional times in your life.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Nice.
it's really a cool thing. You can spend a couple of hours with a trusted friend or family member and really exhaust the pain and emotion and trauma out of an experience. So that when
Right.
you look back at it, you go, "Oh, yeah, this happened, X, Y, Z occurred," but you don't feel like the angst and the
Yeah.
pressure or the feelings and emotional non-ideal emotional attachments to this incident.
Yeah. And
What's
it's super important that we first become aware, right? That we have this subconscious mind and the reactive mind, and we have our analytical mind. And I know I've heard this too. It's like 80% of our day is just comes from the subconscious, right? Like we're like kind of on autopilot and we're just doing the same things over and over again. We see patterns being repeated in
Right.
life, in relationships, in careers, right? So it's
Yeah.
definitely there. I've definitely heard of it, in this different sense. But so how can we change the way we think?
Yeah. I mean, I think understanding how the mind works is a big deal, right? Like with anything you're learning that's new, for me, when going into motherhood, I did the classes on childbirth and how I'm supposed to breathe. I took CPR classes. I did all the things to handle my body. I just didn't realize the mind was going to impinge itself on that
Yeah.
experience for myself, right? Until I was in it. And so I think knowing how the mind works is really important because it's part of who we are. Dianetics is defined as what the mind or soul is doing to the body. So if you can, ideally, if you can navigate and control or isolate what is impacting you negatively, the mind is how it's impacting you negatively, and get control of that and handle it, I think that's the best thing to do. And that's for anything. Like, I'll
Yeah.
give you an example. I don't know if you've ever met anybody or interacted with someone who's afraid of dogs, like really afraid of dogs. And perhaps, have you ever interacted with anybody who's have a weird fear like that, like of dogs or
Me.
cats? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, good. So I'll give you an example that may not be your exact experience, but I'll give you an example that gives you an analogy so you can kind of understand how it works. But if you have a kid and they had a dog that came close to attacking them or biting them, right, as a child,
Mhm.
and let's say the wind was blowing and it was a spring day, and then the dog comes charging at the individual barking, right? And there's fear
Yeah.
associated with it. All of that's recorded on in that incident in the reactive mind. So the next, it could be years later. Sometime
Yeah.
years later, you're walking, you have kids now, it's a spring day, the wind is blowing, anything that approximates that experience that you initially had, you will all of a sudden get this fear,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's an outmoded and outdated way of the body protecting itself. Like there's danger
Yeah.
here. But the
Yeah.
reality is there is no danger. There may not even be a dog. Or maybe there's
Right.
a dog that just walks by, right? On
Right.
a windy day in the spring, and you get this fear. Well, it's not the same dog and it's not the same time period. So the fear should not be there, right?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
you are able to, through the steps in this book, go back and handle that so that when you see a dog again, you don't have fear,
Nice. So
right? So
talk
it's
more
like,
about your book. Yeah, I love that because
yeah,
that happens in careers, right? It happens in relationships with your parents and then with your husband or wife, or
that's right.
so it's happening and it's everywhere. So talk
That's
more about your book and how people can get themselves out of that.
Yeah, so you can go to dianeticsbook.com/gift, and there you can either purchase the book or you can download the first three chapters of the book for free.
Nice.
And the first 11 pages, it's the synopsis and the first three chapters, but the first 11 pages goes over in a nutshell the entirety of the book. And you'll get a good full view of what the book is about. And then you can dive in and learn about the mind and the reactive mind, more importantly, and how it impinges on people in present time without them even knowing it, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a common topic and feeling again that I think most people feel at some point in their lives. So
Yeah. Yeah.
great work you're doing. I love that. If
Well,
somebody wants to learn more about you or they have a question, where can they find you?
yeah, so you can I'll give you the social media handle to put it
Mhm.
in the comments below, but you can follow me on social And of course, you can go to dianeticsbook.com/gift to get your information for yourself on this. But I think it's a really empowering thing for moms, for dads, for parents, for people who are single to know about their mind and fully understand that they are themselves. And then there's this other entity sitting in our universe, right? That impinges upon us at the most unideal time. So yeah.
Yeah. And such an important thing to become aware of it, learn how to change it, not react to these things, right?
Right.
So very important. Awesome. Well, this was a great introduction to Dianetics. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy. I really appreciate it.
Yes. And remember, to all the listeners, you are already an incredible mom. Not
Yes.
because you do it, not because you do it perfectly, but because you keep showing up, growing, and learning. Right?
That's right.
So
Amen.
if today's conversation encouraged you, share it with another mom who needs to hear she's not alone. Reach out if you have questions. Glady and I are both here to help, and you will hear from me next week.
Awesome.
Are you struggling to be the best mom you can be? Are you fatigued, overwhelmed, and stressed out? Are you losing precious time with your family because of PMS? If so, sign up for my free gift on how to start living in tune with your monthly cycle. The link to get it is in the show notes below. Use this guide to help you start to eliminate your symptoms of PMS, increase your energy, reduce stress, and fully enjoy this incredible mom life. The way I see it, you have 3 choices. You can try to figure it all out on your own. You can do nothing and stay where you are, or you can get the customized guidance you need to thrive as a mom. The choice is yours. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you learned something from these stories. If you enjoyed this show, please make sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. It really helps this show grow. If you have a mom story you would like to share, click on the link in the description below on becoming a podcast guest. Remember, the content on this podcast is for general information only. It does not replace any medical advice given by your healthcare providers. Please check with your doctor if you have any questions about your specific condition and before starting any new diet or exercise regimen. Thank you, and you will hear from me soon.